Hello, everyone, and welcome. Just real quick introduction. SharePoint Power Hour is about things you can do in SharePoint online and SharePoint on premises, just without having to necessarily be a programmer or be a server admin. It's all that other stuff that falls in between. Just tons of different topics. We've had hundreds of Power Hours. No, at least 100, like 100 and something. And we've been doing these for a couple of years. Again, I'm Laura Rogers. I'm Microsoft MVP. I have Joelle here. Joelle, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then I'll talk about some of the new stuff we're doing today.
All right, sounds good. So I am Joelle Farley. I am a SharePoint consultant with Co-Designed. Excuse me, and I'm also getting over a cold, so apologies for that. And I am based out of Atlanta, Georgia. I focus a lot on information architecture, taxonomy, and search in SharePoint. And I'm also currently working on getting my certification for Office 365. So I'm trying to up my Office 365 skills as well recently. And that's about it.
Nice. All right. So today we've actually got a new little thing that we're doing. There's this sort of, I don't know what you call it. There's this program called called Slack, that's got a little chat interface. And Slack's got a lot to it. It's got a lot of fun things and interactive ways that you can have conversations and things like that, and categories. So I thought I would start using Slack as our conversation piece for what we're talking about during Power Hour, because the problem with the little Google Q&A that we've been doing is that it's just a one-way thing. People can just basically ask a question. There's not even a way for us to type an answer. Like, all we can do is say the answer out loud and just mark it as answered. And so it's very sort of restricted. You guys can't chat with each other and things like that. There's not that much you can do with it. So I figured we could have this Slack channel, and I went ahead and I put the link to it. I tweeted it out. I put the link to it in the description of this video when I created it. So you can click the link in the little description, whether you're on YouTube or on the Google Hangout. So you can click the link. Basically, it gives you a form to fill out that goes to me to invite you to the Slack channel. So the Slack isn't something that just anybody can hop in. It's something where you have to be invited. So I went ahead and created the channel that allows me to invite y'all. And then once you fill out the form, it sends it to me and say, somebody filled out the form, and then I have to go add you and invite you. So anybody who's, trying to join or trying to fill the form in right now after I started talking, then I'm going to be talking and doing demos, and I might not necessarily be able to go add you. But anyway, once you get in there, you'll see, okay, Slack has got an app. So it does have a web page where you can just log in and type right there on the page, but I highly encourage you to get the app because it's very cool. You can get the app on whatever OS you have. You can put the app on your phone, even your Windows phone. Even Windows Phone has an app for this thing. So the fun thing about Slack is that, let me see, I can go ahead and show it on my screen. Watch this. This is so fancy. All right, so I've got, so Joelle, go ahead and type something in there. And so you can see it on my screen? All right, so here's Slack. And like pop over here to the side. You can have conversations. But the cool thing is it's got this little fancy thing where you can type a backslash. That's the one on the same button as the question mark. I always get my backslashes and forward slashes confused. You type that backslash, and then it opens up this world of possibilities of all these other little additional things that you can type. So there's this fun one called Giphy where you can type G-I-P-H-Y, and you type Giphy and you just type a word, and it'll just pull a random GIF off the animated GIF off the internet and put it in there. So you can see I did a couple of them in there. You can also do backslash. As soon as you type a backslash, it will show you a little menu of kind of all the other little options in there that you can do. Anyway, so I feel free to play around with that. You also, of course, just like any chat app, you have smiley faces and things that you can do and all these little reactions. So Joelle just said hello world. So I can go hover over hers and click add a reaction, and it puts a little, as you can see, it put a little smiley face underneath hers. So that's where you can sort of like give somebody a thumbs up or say that you agree with them and things like that by just hovering over what they just said and adding a little, doing the little add reaction thing. And you can even do that in the app on the phone too. So I guess I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that. Let me go ahead and hide that again. And there we go. All right, and so today's demo that I'm going to do is going to be, I can see that people are filling the form in right now, but I don't know how much time I'm going to have to be able to do that while I'm demoing. So today's demo, I'll try and do it while I'm talking about what today's demo is going to be. All right, so I put out a poll a couple of weeks ago, and in that poll I asked you guys what you thought that what some topics you might want to have for SharePoint Power Hour, and I just gave some options. So the one that had the most votes on it was the one on using content types with workflows attached to them. So there are several different ways and different kind of levels that you can do that, content types with workflows. But what I'm going to do is kind of demo the ins and outs of that and the gotchas and things like that, and try and just go over all your questions and talk about the different ways and the things you can do and can't do in there, and 2010 versus 2013 when it comes to those as well. Oh my gosh, I got like 7 of these coming in. Okay, I'll add a couple more people and then I might not be able to add any more because I got to start doing the demo. So that's the thing about this, is you kind of got to, I've been promoting this join the Slack thing for 2 or 3 days now. hopefully people would like fill it in ahead of time, but okay. So I got a few more in there, but it's okay if you're not in there. We'll get you in there for next time. And I'm going to answer the questions out loud. And once you get in there, you'll actually be able to scroll up and see the conversations that you might have missed before. So it's kind of fun. All right. So today's demo is, let me go ahead and share my screen. And Joelle, can you mute yourself? Let's see, I'm going to share my entire screen and minimize everything. All right, can you see my screen? That's my little Bing image of the day, whatever that is. Can you see my SharePoint site, Joelle? It says that it's sharing my screen. And I also want it to, all right, so content types and workflows. All right, usually in SharePoint when we create a workflow, here's SharePoint Designer. We go in here and, the common thing that I do is I just go find what list I want my workflow to be on, and I pick that list, and then I just start creating the workflow. Well, there are going to be other situations where you might want to have something that's more like a content type that's standard across your organization, and you want that workflow to just go with that content type wherever you use it.
So I can create, there are a couple different ways I can create a workflow that can connect to a content type. I think the best practice for this is, wherever that content type exists, if you've created that content type at the highest level of your site collection, you've created it, if you create the content type in your content type hub or on a certain site, wherever you created the very highest level that content type exists is most likely going to be the best place that you should go into SharePoint Designer and create the workflow that you want to be associated with it. So what we're going to do is, maybe closing SharePoint Designer is what made my audio get fixed. But what we're going to do is go back into SharePoint Designer and kind of show you where some of that is. Now, there's also a way, and once I get in there, we're going to be able to make the content type what's called a globally reusable content type. And so I recommend, as often as you can, when you're creating your content type in the first place, create it at the either the very root level of your site collection, if that's the site collection you're going to be using it, or very root level, or create it in the content type hub. So because I want to be able to go into SharePoint Designer and create it at the root level there, and that way you're not going to have issues with it, going some places and not other places. So let me see what the heck is wrong with SharePoint Designer. Okay, there it is. We'll see if SharePoint Designer is the cause of my issues here. I guess that wouldn't be too surprising. Wow, I blame Office 365 too. You never know. All right, so I'm at the very root level of my site collection. So what I did was, let me just show you one that I created already. I created one called Form Approval, and I can have, so I created one called Form Approval, and I based it on just the form content type, and it can go with any info path form. So what I can do with that is use it in this in any library that's got that form content type. And the way I can add it, and I'll go through creating one too, but I just want to show you kind of where it is first. The way I can add it is by going to the place that the content type is already being used, and I can go add it in that particular library. So I can go to the form content type, and I can say add a workflow. And then any workflow that I've created, see form approval is right here. It looks like I created it twice. Any workflow that I've created, I can just add it to wherever that content type is being used. So that's one way to do it. So one way is to have a workflow and have it just available to be able to use with a content type. So I'll go ahead and show you just kind of some of the first steps in getting that done. So I'll go ahead and create a workflow. So when you, instead of picking list workflow, you pick reusable. Now, this whole 2013 thing is really odd, and I'll show you why those aren't as easy to work with content types as the 2010 ones. And so what I'm going to do is, so I can pick what existing content type that I want my workflow to be associated with. Like if I pick document, like the document content type, that's the one that every single document library uses, then I would be able to use that with that content type. That's a very, that's a very content type that's used all over the place. I don't know if I necessarily want to have that, something that I would tie just to that main root content type of all documents. Like I could pick one like issue. This is going to be like all issue lists. So I can say issue approval. All right, so then I click OK. And I'm just going to, so this session is not going to be as much about what I'm doing in the workflow as much as it is going to be how to connect them and how they're all used. An additional thing I do want to point out, though, inside of this workflow is that when you're doing a content type workflow, you're automatically going to have the fields available to you that exist in that content type. So you can't have just some field that you created just buried in some list or library. It has to be a site column in order to have it available to be able to, if you want to write to it or get information from it, from this workflow. All right. So you also have this thing called association columns in your content type workflow. Association columns means that if I have a site column that isn't necessarily part of that content type, I can still go select it from here. So I can say, let's see, I think I've got one called department. Yeah, so I can go pick department and have it be an association column and then be able to use that inside of my workflow if I want to be able to write to it. So I could take like my generic, write a workflow that's based on my generic form content type and just add a couple of extra site columns. Like if I have some form status site column that I've created that I want to be able to use in the workflow, I can add those in here, and then I'll be able to do things with those field values, get the information or set the information or create variables and things. All right, I'm just going to click cancel right here. So one thing to notice when I'll show you the 2013 ones in a minute, is that there isn't anything about your association columns in there, and there isn't any way to pick a content type, which is very odd. It's like it just got forgotten. So yeah, so that's very, I don't know why, but the 2013 ones just aren't as useful when it comes to just being able to have the fields you need and pick a content type. That's a lot harder work to be able to get things done in those, and they're just not available in lots of places. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of this little second one. And so I created this one called issue approval, and I have to pick. Now with content type workflows, I'm not enabling how I want it to be started. It's already by default going to have all those enabled. I'm going to disable how I don't want people to start it. Maybe I don't want people to be able to manually trigger this one, and I don't want this one to run on change. So then I can go do that, and then and I can publish it. All right, so far so good with the voice, I guess. AJ says I'm trying to have 10 info path forms as content types on about 20 collection sites. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, that's a lot. All right, so then I have this additional thing. I hate the way Office 365 has all these different languages showing right here. If somebody knows how to hide those, that would be awesome. I want this to be able to be used on any issue content types in my entire site collection. So what I can do is not only do I have to create it at the top level, but I need to click publish globally so that all the issues, not just in this top level site where I created it, this workflow, but everywhere in the site collection, I need them all to be able to use it. So this means it's going to be available in every single site collection. So I've got my issue approval. All right, and so I'm just publishing it globally. So all I've done so far is I created a reusable workflow, picked the issues content type, and then just put a single action in there just for it to log something, but I published it globally. All right, so now let's go. I don't necessarily have an issue list, but I'm going to go create an issue list, and any issue lists that exist already, I would be able to use because those already have that that content type. They use that content type. So issue tracking uses the issue content type. All right, so I just created an issue list. Now, where's my issues list? Okay, I'll just go straight to the settings here. And then I'm going to go to my workflow settings. So even though I created it to be associated with this issues content type, the important thing to understand here is that it's not automatically, right now, it's not automatically associated with every single issue list. Okay, so I'd have to go into the issue list where I want to add it, and then I'd have to go, pick issue here and then do add a workflow. And then it's going to give me all the workflows that are going to be available for issues. That's awesome. It's not showing it to me there. Let me make sure that that this list uses that content type. I'm on the right site. I did this last night too to make sure that it all worked before I tested it. Okay, let me go look at. I'm just going to look at another one that I pre-created just to make sure that I didn't have any issues today when I was demoing this. All right, let me go show you one of these. I've got form approval here and I've got policy approval, and I wanted to show you those. So what I did was I picked form as the content type. So what I can do is go to my Contoso checks list and go, I think I did this, I started to show you this a minute ago, and show you kind of where, showing you where it comes from. So I can go to workflow settings. I don't have any workflows associated with this as the whole list itself, but and I don't have any associated with the specific content type. So I'm going to go click add a workflow, and then form approval, it shows there. Maybe the issue approval one's just like it's a timing thing. Maybe it takes a few minutes for it to be available or something, but it worked fine when I did the form approval one. Okay, approve, and I can even call it something else. I can say approve check, like that, and then it's going to give me a task list and workflow history, and then I need to say, since I disabled the ability for it to be manually run, then I can say when I do want it to be run. Because remember the little check boxes to disable, so that allows them. It doesn't give them that as a start option. Okay, so now I've got approve check, and I can just go prove that it runs real quick by filling out I can just go edit one of my check requests. I've got one that I just filled out yesterday, and I'm going to say, cool, I'm going to go approve it. Pick the next approver, Joelle, let's see, be my next approver. And then it ran the workflow. So how do we know if it ran the workflow? I can go look at my little workflow button here and see my workflows page. That was very weird. It acted like it was going to go to the workflow page, and then it just didn't. Alrighty. I definitely blame Office 365 for all this. All right. I love the way it puts your like this big, long, ugly username too. Okay, so approve check. That's the one I just added to this, and it says it completed and email has been sent. So Joelle, you actually in my Office 365 tenant, you would have gotten an email to go approve the check. All right, so the next thing I might want to do is add a workflow to just go with the content type wherever it goes. So if I want to do that and have it just automatically be there for all my, everywhere I use that content type, I can go to the content type itself. So I'll show you the policies one if I can't get this issue thing to work, but I did one on the policies. Yeah. Oh, because the issue, just the out-of-the-box issue one is probably one of the hidden content types that just doesn't show here. So just, oh no, there it is. That's weird. Okay, I put an S on it. That's why it didn't show. Okay, so there's issues. So if I wanted to follow the content type everywhere it goes and automatically be there in all the lists that use this content type, I could go straight to the content type and go to workflow settings and then add a workflow this way. And then look at that issue approval, there it is. So it appeared, so approve issue. And then it will create the task list and the workflow history. And then I can say how I want it to be started. And I'll just say, sure, it can be manually created and new items. And remember, I disabled the one for it to start when they were changed. Add this workflow to all related content types, yes. What are you looking for, Joelle, about you said you're looking for a blog post about something?
Yeah, I think we're, sorry, I think we're just looking for some step-by-step guidance on publishing a form to a content type. Somebody was, I think, going through a couple extra steps that they didn't need to go through. So I was trying to see if I could find, instead of, I probably won't be able to type out all the steps into the chat. So I was just looking to see if you had a blog or something that we could point them to.
Yeah, I wrote, okay, so in my InfoPath book, I wrote a whole chapter on the whole publishing and submitting process.
Yeah.
So it's pretty complicated. I could just maybe do a whole other power hour, but the whole publishing and submitting thing in InfoPath is just, there's a lot to it. So yeah, you have to, it helps to create all your site columns ahead of time, and then when you're going through the publishing wizard in InfoPath, you pick content type, then you pick all the site columns to associate with your fields in InfoPath on that screen. That's important.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so we'll I'll keep kind of chatting there, so you can go ahead.
Yeah, that's a whole other ball of wax with getting with InfoPaths, forms, and content types. Yeah. All right, so now I added approve issue just to the content type itself. So now let's see if it just followed me. Oh, it crashed IE. Office 365 has been crashing IE like constantly for me in the past few days, by the way. All right, so it takes me there, but it crashes IE on the way. Okay, so let's go check. Let's go look in here. All right, I'll go to list set. I'll just go straight to workflow settings and go look at that. And then I can just go, create an item and make sure it works and all that. Come on, workflow settings. Yeah, I can just edit out all this white space in here where I was just waiting for Office 365 to do something. All right, I'll go to issue and go. Yeah, I blame IE too. Too bad IE is the best one to use with SharePoint. All right, so look at that. See, it's in there. So there's my approve issue workflow. So now when I'll just go create an issue, go back up in my little breadcrumb trail like that. Maybe I can crash IE a couple more times. And then I'm just going to click save. Okay, and then I can go look at that, approve issue in progress. And I'll refresh the page and let's see what it's doing. All I did was I put a single thing to log something in here, so it really shouldn't be taking that long. All right, it ran. So it finished. So there's my workflow. All right. So then the next thing, so what I've done is I showed you how to create a workflow and then just create the workflow associated with the content type and then just go to some places where the content type is being used and manually add the workflow. I also showed you how to go directly to the content type and add that reusable workflow on it. So another thing you might want to do, which is to, if you're doing things with multiple lists, that's where it gets a little tricky with writing back and forth to be able to have a workflow that's truly, a reusable workflow that doesn't exist in that one site. It makes it a lot harder to do something like when you're wanting to write to other lists and things. So that's a lot more tricky. So when you've got a task that you're assigning, though, you can have an associated task list. So what I can do is I'll go to my issue list, my issue approval reusable workflow, and I'll go edit it. And what I can do is I can create, not only can I just use the task actions that already exist, but I can even say create an item in this list, and it's got this association thing, association task list. So, because remember when I first create a workflow, it's already got these lists, like the task list that's associated with it and the workflow history list. So what I can do is say, let's see, test, task, put a number there. So I can make it create tasks and do things back and forth with the task list. Well, not necessarily back and forth, but I can make it right to the task list and look at things in the task list via this workflow. The problem is if I wanted to go to the task list and make it do something with this other list, then there isn't really a way to do an association from the task list back. Does that make sense? Because remember, this is all sort of floating at this higher level. It's not just in a site where you can have two related lists to each other. You just have to use this association thing. So you can do something where you write to a task list, or you can get information from a task list, but you can't necessarily have the task list automatically know this issue list. Does that make sense? All right. So I can create the item in the task list. I'll just give it a couple more things in here. Priority high, and what I'd like to have would be a task list that's got a certain content type in it. So maybe I could add extra fields in here, but I don't, that's not necessarily an option that you have because you're restricted. So you're getting, you're a little restricted in a few of these things, in a few of the ways that you can do some things in here when it comes to more complex workflows with multiple lists. That's why I don't create every workflow that I create as a reusable workflow. I just do it when I can and when it's appropriate. So task status not started. So it's going to go create this list item. Now, if I wanted to just wait for something to happen in the task list, I guess I could do that, but that's no fun. All those task actions, they wait anyway. All right, I'll go ahead and publish that. And then the next thing I'm going to show you is the ability to save it as a template and put it in a completely different site collection. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and publish this real quickly. I don't really care if it works or not. I'm not going to go run it. I've only got, 15 minutes left. But what I'm going to do is I'll show you how you can save it as a template and how that whole process works. All right, when I save this as a template, let me go save as template, issue approval. What it's doing is it's creating a solution file for me. It puts it in the site assets list. I go to my site contents and go to site assets. In here, and this is the one, here it is. And policy approval is one that I created yesterday, and I'll talk about that one in a minute. But so I've got issue approval, it's this WSP file. I can actually download that. I'm just going to download that to my hard drive, to my desktop, and like that. All right, now I downloaded it, and then I need to go to my other site collection and put it in there. So let's see, what's my other site collection? My other one's going to be slash sites slash project. Yeah. All right, a few steps more to do this. You go to site settings, and you're going to need to go to solutions. Okay, there's something extra that you need to know about this solutions and the fact and whether it's there or not. Is that in Office 365, by default, there's a setting in the admin settings for SharePoint, and that basically, by default, it's turned off so that people can't, quote, run scripts. So a lot of these galleries are turned off. So if you only see site columns and content types here in your Web Designer galleries, that means that you have to go to this Office 365 setting and allow scripting, which is really odd and doesn't seem like it would go together, but apparently all these galleries allow for, they're like a vulnerability. So that's how to get this if you don't have it, and it'll take it could take 24 hours for it to appear there. All right, so I can go to solutions here, and I have to upload my WISP, my WSP file. So go to my issue approval there. And okay, now this issues content type just happens to be a content type that is one of the global ones that exists in the content type hub and exists in every single SharePoint content type. It's one of the default ones. So it's going to be really easy to use this template that I'm creating no matter where I go, because that content type is just going to be there. This policy approval one, on the other hand, that I created the other day or yesterday, there's a Contoso policies content type that only exists in one site collection. So guess what? If you take that workflow and you copy it to save it as a template and put in some other site collection, any fields that have to do with your content type or anything like that aren't necessarily going to function if the content type doesn't exist in the place where you're using it. It's not going to go create the content type for you. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're doing this, that it helps to either have a content type, created in the content type hub that exists in all of them, or use the one of the out of the box ones, or I don't know, maybe create a content type that's just got the exact same name. I don't know if that would work though. I haven't tried that. A little buggy thing here I've noticed with the activate is that if I click activate, it doesn't actually activate it. I have to click the little drop down box and activate it. Don't know why. All right, so now it says it's activated. So then what does it do? Then it actually creates a feature. So not only do I have to go upload the solution and activate it, I have to go enable this feature that it just added to my site. So now, see, here's the policy approval one I added yesterday, and then I've got issue approval. So now I have to go activate this. So then once I activate that, and it's going to have the name of, whatever it was, workflow template issue approval, then it's going to be available in SharePoint Designer. So let me go create an issue list in this site. I'll do add an app and issue tracking. Yeah, I'm sure this is documented in a blog post somewhere by somebody, not by me, but all these steps. All right, let's see. Let's go to my list settings, go to where the content types are, allow management of content types. All right, now I've got issue here. We'll go look at workflow settings. And let's see if there are any already. So remember, I had added the content, I had added the workflow to my issue content type over in the other site collection, but not in this project site collection. So that's why it's not going to be automatically in here. Thanks, Paul. That's a cool answer. Yes. All right, so look at that. You have a not enabled approval workflows. This apparently is something that is new that they've thrown in Office 365 because people get confused as to where in the heck their workflows are, and they don't know that you have to go over to the site site collection features and go activate workflows to get the out of the box ones. So this is a little thing that they've thrown in that's, I believe it's only in Office 365 to tell you, to prompt you right here to activate the feature. I don't know why they don't just activate it by default in your team sites. Don't get me started. Okay, so I don't really need the out of the box approval workflows. I just need my workflow. So I'm going to add a workflow. Let's see if it just shows there. Issue approval, look at that. So notice how short this list is. It's because I didn't enable the default approval workflows. So there's not this long list of stuff in here, but there's issue approval. So that's pretty cool. All right, so issue approval, approve issues. I'm just adding it in this one list, even though, like I said, you can go just add it in the content type, at the content type level of the site collection. All right, so now I've got approve issues. Now let's go see how, remember I threw in that whole task thing, right? Let's go do that. So let's watch it go create a task. Okay. Cool new issue, not very creative. It's active and it's low priority. Save. And I don't remember what I said as the trigger, but we'll go ahead and just trigger it. I think I had it set so it's, I think it can be triggered manually. Yeah, approve issues. I didn't set it so it automatically runs when a new issue is created. And it's all just a 2010 workflow. So if you have 2013 workflow functionality that you need to use in a reusable workflow, yeah, good luck with that. You can do it though. I'll show you, I've got 9 minutes left, so I'll show you some of that stuff and give you some hints as to maybe how that could be done. Oh, an error occurred. Woohoo. The workflow could not create the list item. There probably is not a task list in here. Let's see. Oh no, there is a task list. So it can't create the item in the task list. So that's going to be, that's definitely a, remember I told you about, you know, having multiple lists involved and how it gets really tricky and buggy. So even though it says association task list, it's still bugging out when it's, you know, trying to write to a task list. So again, very sketchy. Let me go ahead and I'm not going to try and troubleshoot that issue because I'm sure that it's most likely something very buggy. But I don't think that I have the bandwidth to troubleshoot that in the 8 minutes I have. But again, I already knew that there would be issues with trying to do something across multiple lists with this reusable workflow. All right, so I'm going to go, I created a 2013 reusable workflow and I didn't put anything in it. I just created as a test 2013 reusable workflow. It doesn't give you the option to pick a content type. It just says all, and then it's just available to add to any content type you have. But it doesn't have much available to write to. The only field you have is title, because that's the only field that exists in every single content type. So what I can do is, there's sort of a workaround, I guess. I can use the update list item action, and I can say, go update the current item. Let's see, let me think. What was it? It was, I'm trying to think of, update the, basically had to do with using just the ID of the current item. And no, there isn't really a pretty way to do this, by the way. Yeah, I can't think of why. So why would you want to use a 2013? I mean, of course, there are a few workflow actions in 2013 workflows that you can use, but that you can't use in 2010. But it's going to be such a weird workaround, such a weird sort of kludgy, complicated way that you'd have to do it in a 2013 one just to make it function. I just don't think that it's going to be worth it. You know what I mean? It's just one of those SharePoint, like we do a lot of stuff in SharePoint that's, you know, that you kind of do little workarounds here and there and little gotchas, but that's going to be one of those ones that's just way overboard. You know, it's just, it's not even worth trying to figure out how to do it and trying to actually use that in the real world. So I'm just going to say my official stance is going to be that if you need to do something as a reusable workflow, hopefully it's 2010 workflow functionality that you're using. Or if you just want to write to the title field, you know, you could send an email. I mean, you could still send an email and have you could just have a workflow that's just got a generic email that says, thanks, your item has been submitted. And that way, you know, you could be using as sort of like another option to having an alert to just maybe send an email to the person that added the item to whatever list or library that was, and then just have everything be very generic in here. Okay, so thanks for submitting. Let's see. I'm just going to put title in here. Title, submission, like that. And then there you go. It's just got very generic information. And you can even use workflow context to put a link to the current item URL. So there are a few things. Oh, wait, I didn't put that in as a link. I can say click here to open it, basically, and then I could go use my workflow context to go to my current item URL. There we go. So again, you can do some things like that, but there's just something very simple. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, and I'm going to, let's see, switch back over to my webcam, maybe. It's got my green screen. Look at that, see? So that's what I'm trying to, that's what I've been trying to figure out. Y'all saw it at the very beginning of Power Hour. See, it's all blurry now because I took all the auto functionality out of the settings for my webcam. So it's not doing like auto adjust or anything. So maybe we'll get a little bit more of this figured out for next time. But I'm going to go into my into the Slack thing. We had a fairly lively conversation. I'm going to go into the Slack thing, and I'm going to let all the people join that tried to join while we were talking. And I'm going to, you know, we can continue the conversation. And then we can just use that hopefully for Power Hours ongoing, and just kind of get used to the, you know, the functionality where you use the little backslash and you use the little reactions and all those things. And if you're wondering what the name of that means, the IW Mentor thing, that's my new SharePoint training company that I just created. I haven't really necessarily made some big announcement yet. That'll be upcoming. I did put a couple of SharePoint classes out on the website. They are out there. It is live and everything. But I literally just, I still work at Rackspace. Like, I literally just started this quote new job yesterday. So I'm just trying to get my stuff together. All right. We will see you all next time. Thanks for coming. Bye, Joelle.
Bye.